Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we are on the Ba-dum-bum Year of the Dresden, where we are covering the last third of Grave Peril by Grim Butcher. We just started recording, and I said it's Monday of the week this comes out.
Yep.
We're gonna start working ahead very soon. We're on time, but I was like, Laura, part of me was like, can we record this tomorrow? And it's like, we literally cannot. This is I just didn't want to talk about it.
This is absolute last minute.
This is absolute last minute, and it's even like later in the day than when we usually record. So we had to do it like right this second. And I ate an entire brownie sundae to prepare myself to give myself a little bit of a better mood for it. It is delicious.
That's great preparation.
It was. I was a big fan of it. But
can I tell you that? So this past weekend was like 4th of July weekend, and it's like in the United States, it's like get-togethers galore.
Yeah,
is what it turns into. And not that I'm like a hardcore introvert, so like being at gatherings really drains me. But I do enjoy seeing like friends and family. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy seeing friends and family, but when it's like all of them in one weekend, it's like a lot. So it was also a thing too, like you have to make dish to pass and all this stuff. But Hannah, yesterday, I went to one of my husband's family gatherings with him too. He came along, and
she left him at home.
Yeah, he came along, but I made this rhubarb crisp. It was so good. I was really impressed with myself.
That's good. I don't love rhubarb.
You don't like rhubarb? Oh, I love it because it's like super tangy. There were a few people there yesterday that had never had rhubarb, and they were like looking at it, and the stuff that I used was not all like bright pink either, so it didn't end up looking exactly like the picture on Pinterest.
Shocking.
But it tasted great if you like rhubarb. But like some people were looking at it and like, is that celery? And I'm like, no, it is absolutely not celery.
I promise
celery has no taste.
No. I grew up in a rhubarb household. Like there was rhubarb, like, my mom made up everything.
Sure.
We thought we had rhubarb here at my house, and we were under the assumption we had a lot of rhubarb. And it turns out it is the fake rhubarb that sometimes grows that looks so much like rhubarb, but is definitely not. So
I guess I don't know what the fake rhubarb is.
It's called, I forget what it's called, but like I literally had to look it up because we
charred?
were like, no, it's inedible. And like when I was looking at it, I was like, fake rhubarb. And like the first thing that popped up was like fake rhubarb in Wisconsin, which is where I live. So I was like, oh, I wonder what this is.
I'll admit, I am not good about utilizing the rhubarb that I have. Like, we have a small patch of it, and generally every year I'm like picking it and giving it to people so that it gets used because I'm not the greatest about using it.
Yeah.
But I was getting a little low on groceries and things like that. So I was like, you know what? I do have some rhubarb, so I will make this. And it was quite tasty. So I'm patting myself on the back.
It's called the common burdock, it's a part of the sunflower family.
Okay.
It starts looking like rhubarb, and then in the
like the big leaves.
Yeah. But then it produces burrs, which is how we figured out it was definitely not rhubarb.
We were like, fun.
That's not what we thought it was.
That hurts.
we luckily like it started. But in other news, Hannah's garden show, I've been growing potatoes in buckets, and they're doing amazing.
Awesome.
And we started harvesting our cucumbers. We've gotten like 3 cucumbers out of our garden, and they're delicious. Yes, I think so, because I planted too many cucumbers. So Laura is supposed to come up for a weekend to do random vegetable harvest things with me, and we're just going to just live from my garden. Although something happened. My broccoli bolted, so that means it flowers, and it means it will not actually produce broccoli. But luckily you can still eat the stalks and the leaves. I'm figuring out what to do with broccoli stalks, because I was like, this is bolted, it's useless. And so I looked it up, and like you can try to pick the flowers.
Can you chop them and put them in things?
Yeah, you pretty much, like, the whole plant is edible. It's just like figuring out what to do with it. Yeah, that's what I think we're gonna probably do, is just make like a quick soup with it.
Yeah.
but and they were like, oh, well, you could still try to produce like smaller broccoli like sprouts off of it, but it's not going to produce anything. It's because of the weird weather we've been having.
Yeah.
So I did give some to my mother-in-law. I was like, here, figure out what to do with broccoli stalks. Yay. And then I gave her a cucumber. So,
Have
but
you
we've
been
been
getting
doing
a lot of rain or no?
we have been getting a lot of rain. A lot of times when you get rain, I get it like an hour and a half later, but it was more the sudden like that big huge heat wave. When you have a huge heat wave, I guess or like a big huge cold front or something, broccoli can bolt and it will start like trying to produce. So didn't know that, but I found
Yeah.
out. It's very funny because I live with my future sister-in-law and my fiance, and they both are like, well, Hannah knows a lot about gardening. And I'm like, I don't, but like I grew up enough around like growing of things that I know enough like I saw the broccoli flowering and I was like, I don't think that looks right. And so then I just researched and then I was like, oh yeah, it wasn't right. That's usually what's happening, but you know, it
I
is
give you
what it
credit
is.
because like I am terrible with plants. Like this is why I have animals because they're so much easier than plants. Like animals remind you like, excuse me, I need to be fed. I need some water out here.
You weaned me too late. Um
I'm
so
huge. I need to be away from my mom.
I need to be away from my mom. Ah! No, so I like doing like vegetable plants because like I grew up doing vegetable gardens, but I was never an active participant. So I think it all came through like osmosis of like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is how you can sort of. So I know a lot of like theories. This is just my first year putting it into
Sure.
practice. So,
You
but
have
I
like
also
houseplants too, though, right?
yeah, I wasn't a huge plant person. It's actually very funny. Like we talk about, I didn't really have plants until my mom passed away, and then I got a bunch of like dead mom plants. And
That's what
that's what,
happens at funerals is everyone gives
yeah,
you plants.
that's what we call them. Like one of them was kind of sickly, and I was like, look, I have a couple other dead mom plants, but this is the main dead mom plant, so I would
Sure.
like to keep it alive. And so I've
Sure.
learned that I really like growing things, but I'm not always good about keeping them alive. But I
Mm.
did keep an orchid alive. I just repotted it and it's
Nice.
flowering again for the third time. So yeah,
Nice.
this is Hannah's gardening hour. Thank you guys all for
If
participating.
anyone
Laura.
knows about snake plants, I have killed one of those. So, and if plant people, if you're listening, you will be rolling your eyes so hard because apparently snake plants are like impossible to kill.
Look, I've
I've
killed multiple
mm,
peace lilies.
I've done it.
So peace lilies are supposed to be impossible. I feel like anyone who says like these are impossible to kill, they're lying. Like it is very possible to
I
kill.
mean, you can do it.
My thing was I started learning how to propagate, and that actually is what
Mm,
saved me because I'm
okay.
not the greatest about keeping like big plants alive, but I am pretty good at being like, let's just throw it in some water and see what happens. And
Sure.
then I have brought back when I like moved out with from my cousin, she had this like purple plant that I've almost killed 3 times now, where just like the roots fall out of it. And I'm like, well, I
Okay.
guess I'm chopping it up and propagating it. And then it just like bursts back to
Takes
life.
off.
So I'm a good like
I have this pothos plant. I was gonna grab it to show you, but it's far
it's a
away. Here,
visual medium.
here's part of it. I'm bringing
Oh,
it to.
it's doing so well.
It is doing well, and my friend gave it to me that she propagated because my friend is quite a plant person. Like she has a
Hmm.
ton of plants. Like I'm very jealous, but I am terrible with plants. And I was like, "Oh, I really like that one," and she was like, "Oh, well, like that's a hard one to do," because she knows me. So she gave me a little sprig of this thing a few years ago, and it's done really well. But the reason I like this pothos plant is because it will start to kind of like wilt a little bit, and then I'm like,
Mm.
oh, gotta water it.
Yep.
And whereas like other plants, I swear, I either water too much or not enough and kill them.
I'm a big like during the summer, a lot of my plants are by a window, so I water them at least once a week. And then in the winter, you could probably go back to like every 10 days or 2 weeks. So
Yeah, I'm really bad about that
having a
now.
timeline is actually easier for my ADHD brain because then I've trained myself to on Sundays be like, have I watered my plants recently? Then double checking them. So
I'm so bad about like though if it's not an everyday thing, you know what I mean? Where
yeah.
like if if I have to do something like every day or twice a day, like I'm great about it. Like
We have
obviously my animals I have to take
yeah.
care of daily, twice a day, and things like that where I start to develop like a daily habit, it becomes really easy for me. When it's something where it's like once a week or every other week, I'm like, it's dead.
So my aunt and uncle have a giant fern that they have like split like at
Mhm.
least 20 times that they gave to me when they moved
Mm-hmm.
into their retirement facility. Cause I remember this plant, they literally got it on their second wedding anniversary. And the way we are like fighting for our lives to keep this fern alive, and they have kept it alive for like 40
So
years,
long.
and you're just sitting there like, I don't know what
Oh
I'm doing wrong.
no.
I've had multiple breakdowns. My fiance has called multiple nurseries, and right now it's
About
thriving.
this
The problem
fern.
is like for so long it lived in a very specific, like, we live in the middle of the forest, and every summer we go out on this porch and get this sunlight, and so now it's like, what are you doing to me? And it's just like, I don't know, I just want you to live. So that's been fun. Can you tell that we really want to talk about this book? Laura,
I
what
mean,
do
I
you?
do enjoy talking about some other things too, though. Like,
No,
I
I
feel
know.
like we don't ever get into the fruit and plant
The fruit of the
things.
podcast, yeah.
We don't ever get into the
Uh,
fruit anymore. And I
yeah.
miss talking about fruit.
Can I tell you that I accidentally, so I planted, there was some, so we made the mistake where we bought a bunch of like plants to put in the garden, and we did some seeds and some like already like developed
Started
plants.
plants, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But some of our starters, we forgot that there were four to each little like container. So
Okay,
you're
yeah, yeah.
buying and you're like, oh, I'll buy two of those. But really, you're buying eight
8.
plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so we planted so much squash and so many cucumbers.
Mm.
And the squash, like,
Those grow really well too.
so they
So,
grow super well. And I didn't realize this. So I had actually put one of the squashes that was left over. I'm like, I'll just put it in my little planter box. And then they started popping off. And I was like,
oh
I am
no.
going to take that out of my planter box. It's
Can
like,
you like freeze squash though? I would think you could freeze it because I buy it the frozen squash at the store.
I think there's a little bit of prep work that you would have to do with it, like where you
Okay.
probably want to cut it up. You don't want like the seeds and everything
Well,
to,
yeah,
because
yeah,
then
yeah.
when you
Because I'm thinking
defrost,
like the squash that I get at the store is cubed. So
yeah, I think you could probably freeze that. So I think we're probably going to do some of
yeah, I was gonna
that.
say that
And
maybe just try to. Do you have a large freezer? You can start freezing
yeah, I do have
things.
a deep freezer. We may have to get a second one. Um, and also I thought about maybe like you could probably do some good if when I learned to can,
Purees.
I purees and just like can the purees and then make sure that they're sealed properly and then
Yeah, like
just have some
squash soup is really good,
so
especially in
good.
the fall. I really like that.
Yeah.
Do you
So
eat soup year round, or are you kind of like a I only like
so
it in the cold
So the
months?
thing is I recently I'm getting married to a vegan. So he can't eat like a ton of foods that I grew up making. And so I have never eaten more soup in my life than I did this past winter. Because, like, it's so easy to be like, well, it's cold out. Let's just throw some vegetables in a pot and simmer it until it's done cooking. Like, I had
Sure.
always been like, oh, yeah, I make soups in an Instapot. I do it like this. I do it like this. And then, like, living with him, I'm like, soups are so easy to just throw all of the
Sure.
vegetables in and just let them soak and
Yeah.
spice. So, like, I've never eaten more soup in my life. So right now we're not doing as much soup because since we eat so much of it in the winter months, I think you need a break.
You guys are literally like, I bleed soup.
I eat so much soup. Well, because it's just like, what do you like if you're a vegan and I'm someone who like I really appreciate protein intake. So it's like I guess I will make another soup with 3 beans in it. Like it's
Sure,
very
sure.
specific. So
I feel
uh
like I grew up in a big soup family. Like my
mm,
parents and my sister love soup. Like they would have it every single night, every single meal. Like they love soup so much. And I came to this realization like after I got married and that I when I was started being the one making all of the food,
yeah.
I was like, I'm not gonna make soup. And I tend to only make it when it's cold.
Mm,
And I just feel like I'm very much one of those people that like this sounds so old school. I like sound like an old grandma saying this, but like I don't like to make certain things in the summer because I'm like that heats up the house or that's gonna heat up my body. And
no, I
I like
agree.
to keep soup especially just for like that's a warm me up food.
Yeah.
And the same with certain casseroles and stuff where I'm like, no, that's not for summer. That's for
Yeah.
the winter.
I
And
think
I
that that's
don't know
okay
why I'm like
because,
that.
Well, that is how we're supposed to be. Like we're supposed to be people who like forage and prepare, and like that is like what we two white women from cold European
Yes,
countries are
I'm
made of.
definitely a forager, as you can tell by me just mentioning a few minutes ago how I kill all plants.
No, you're
This is why
doing
I
the
live off
animal
of eggs.
husbandry. Laura and I are gonna trade tomatoes for eggs, and I can't
Yeah,
wait. So,
a lot of
um,
eggs.
but yeah, so I think definitely colder weather. I never made that much soup until this past winter, and then I made soup so much living with a human who does not eat any
What are like some of your favorite
meats.
soups?
So a lot of times I just do vegetable soups, like whatever we do. So
Okay.
we started doing vegetable bouillon cubes,
Okay.
which is so nice to have just like on hand.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah,
what we
just
would
add some water.
do was just like chop up a bunch of like onions, garlic, um, and then just throw
Do
in
you
a lot of
actually
times.
like get garlic cloves and like
No, so Costco gives you an entire giant jug of garlic, and we just buy that. And
yeah,
we
I
just
also do
use
that because I'm extremely lazy.
it's
I,
here's the
like
thing.
I see
Just
people online that are like,
order
just do this and just peel them. It's so easy. I'm like, heck with that.
okay,
I don't have time to be peeling garlic, and then I don't want my
fresh
hands to smell like
garlic
it.
is delicious. But if you
It's
just
actually
use
cheaper.
3 times the amount of what they tell you to use, it's gonna taste the same. So
Yep.
I usually just do a giant jug of garlic,
Yep.
the dunk, and then usually carrots, celery, peppers, and then a lot of times we'll do beans and potatoes. I do love
Okay.
a bean and potato stew, so
Okay. Yum.
I love potatoes. So
I really like
mostly,
mushrooms, so I make this mushroom and rice soup a lot in the winter, obviously.
yeah.
And my husband, he is not very big on mushrooms. I think it's a
Mm,
texture thing. Like people are either like
yeah.
all about mushrooms or they're like, no.
Yep.
And so I'll make this mushroom rice soup, and he'll eat it, but he's
Yeah.
always just like, but there's something missing from this. There's something about this soup. And I'm like, it's the mushrooms. You just
Yeah.
don't like mushrooms. Like, just
Right.
admit it. It's the mushrooms.
But he's like too polite to do it.
Yeah.
No, I'm a big like multiple vegetable and potatoes, but my thing is seasoning. Like I like a
Mhm.
good cumin, I like a good red pepper flake. I like crisp pepper, paprika sometimes will be like a
Okay.
nice little smoky flavor. So I'm more onto the spices, and also adding the spices to the sautéed vegetables before you add the
Mhm.
soup broth in is always good, because then it
Yeah, that
like
does sound
mixes
good.
in with the taste. So welcome to Soup Hour and Vegetable Garden Talk.
Hey, I
I'm
dig
your
it. I
host,
dig it.
Hannah. But Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying right now?
So I did enjoy that rhubarb crisp that I made. Like
I am enjoying my garden. So guys, we're just on the correct topic, okay?
that's what I'm enjoying. Um but no, I have been like still not really reading anything just because,
That's okay.
brain not accepting. It's like a VCR that you try to push something in, it's just like and
You
spits it
read
right back out.
so much at the beginning of this year. Like I
I
think
know. I've
sometimes you need a
already got like
break.
62 books read, so
Yeah.
it's kind of, and I get it. Some of those are mangas and a lot of novellas because I was part of
So
Sphinx, but it all
brain
counts
power. It all
because
counts.
I feel like it's separate stories. So even though they're shorter, it's still a separate story in my mind
Hmm.
that it takes like brain cells to compute.
Yeah.
So, but and I completed Mega May, so that's the first
You
time I've been able to
did.
do that. And usually May is my slump month, so June into
Mm,
July has become the slump month
no.
this year. So, but nothing really read, but I watched more of The Boys, and now I'm just like at the point with The Boys now where I'm like, this most recent episode, I'm like embarrassed to even admit this. This
Oh,
show.
yeah, because are you caught up with the new
Oh my,
season?
yes, I'm totally
Oh,
caught up.
okay. So
Like,
I found
what
out about
the
what happened.
world? How
I
freaking
listen.
bizarre. And people are still upholding Homelander like he's some wonderful human. And come on. Like, ew. And
Yeah.
also, just a lot of bad stuff happened with Huey, and
Hmm.
he was already like going through a lot, and then
Hmm.
that happened. I'm just like, what was this episode? And I hate to like jump on a bandwagon of like what other people are saying, but there was a hand not more than a handful of people who were saying that that episode really felt like they were trying to go for a shock just
Yeah.
for shock's sake. And I do feel like that was kind of the case. And I hate that a little bit, that it
So
was just trying to get reactions of people a bit. And I'm like, come on, this show is already really pushing the limits and did not need to have this
so
episode.
this is small spoilers for the most recent episode of The Boys because I have not watched it, but I have read some spoilers, so I would like to talk about it. Because I read some stuff on it that I found very interesting, and I do think it's very topical. I listened to a reaction from one of my favorite of all time TikTokers who is on Instagram, so you should be able to watch her reels, Laura, named Jay Stoobs, Stoobs.
Okay.
And she talks about how she watches The Boys. She's been watching it the entire time, but she also talks about the fact that The Boys will always take pushing the envelope over actual cohesive storytelling with stakes. And
That's
she
exactly what's happening in that.
and so she pointed that out. So then I started doing a little bit more research and I found an article about the show creator. Please double check my work here on this, but the show creator in the first episode or the first couple episodes of The Boys, Starlight, is that her name?
Starlight.
Starlight is
Yeah, Annie January.
sexually assaulted by one of her favorite superheroes. And when that episode came out, he, like the writer and creator of the show, came out and he was like, yeah, I researched a lot. I talked to a lot of women before writing this, and I really wanted to give it like full stakes. And in the most recent episode, spoilers, so skip ahead about a minute, Huey gets sexually assaulted by his favorite superhero.
Yeah.
And the writer admitted that he did it as kind of it was supposed to be a funny scene, which I find bad.
It wasn't funny at all.
It's not funny, and I do not think we talk enough about male sexual assault and the fact that it's not a joke and it's very real with very real stakes, and people should take it seriously. And men get to have complicated sexual experiences just the way women do.
Yes.
And that's pretty horrifying to say that you wrote something like that. That is
Yeah,
apparently
that
very
makes it
gross.
honestly even worse because I didn't pick up on any of the quote unquote hilarity of that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought it was well acted by Jack Quaid because he really just brought a lot of the emotions of what Huey was going through out, because you could tell that it was just like, awful. Like, nothing about it was funny. It was not funny. And a lot of what happens in that entire episode, like the episode previously, there's weird stuff that happens. There's like really wild things that are happening. And obviously you have a lot of like your favorite moments. I shouldn't say your favorite. You have a lot of typical moments for Butcher and Homelander that I think are somewhat fan service, but also just like kind of furthering us into the whole storyline with them. And I thought that episode was just very much like the boys being the boys. This most recent one, I'm like, honestly, I will give it another episode, but if it's more of this, I'm gonna quit.
I mean, the sexual assault was what made me tap out of it. Like when I was watching it originally, I couldn't watch any more of it. Like I remember being incredibly and obviously there are a lot of complicated reasons, but I remember when the Deep was sexually assaulted, I like was so disturbed by the way that was filmed. It really put a bad taste in my mouth.
Can I also tell you that like some of the interviews about that character being sexually assaulted are a little weird because they'll ask the actor about it and he kind of is like, yeah, it was like so perfect that this happened because, you know, he assaulted people. And I'm like, that's not what we want to be portraying, that, you know, like, oh, everyone who has sexually assaulted someone should themselves be sexually assaulted as vengeance. Like, I felt very uncomfortable with the way that a lot of the interviews surrounding that situation kind of went down, and how that character is kind of upheld and considered a favorite by a lot of people, and really how they've kind of twisted that whole storyline around is uncomfortable and weird too. I get why they're doing it, because this does happen where we have sexual abusers who then go on to kind of worm their way into a place of good standing and people
Yes.
forget about it. And this
And that's
happens
also not to
often.
say that people like what he did was atrocious, but it's also not saying that like no one can ever be redeemed or deserve sexual assault or something, but like to be a fan favorite and lose that context is a problem.
Yes,
Um,
that's what I'm getting at.
yeah. And
It's because
yeah.
I feel like a lot of the fans of the boys, and this is just me going off of comments that I'm seeing on social media and
Mhm.
YouTube when I'm like looking at like cast interviews or like just coming across things on social media because people are talking about these episodes, and I'm like, the fans are an interesting bunch like I have never encountered before, because they seem like Star Wars fans are toxic. This group seems toxic and oblivious. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know how to describe it. And when we're handling such sensitive material, it's very bothersome to have some of the rhetoric that the fans are sharing
Yeah.
being
It's
shared. Like,
it's
I'm
complicated.
bothered.
Yeah, it's very complicated. I think
It's very complicated. The show itself is complicated. The characters are complicated. I think it's a very interesting discussion point show where it's very timely. There's things that you can and should be taking away from this show. I don't know if it's the show for everyone, because I don't think that a lot of people are able to take away things from this show.
yeah.
And that's, I think, more what I'm getting at, where certain viewers are getting the wrong messaging from the show,
Yeah.
and that they're unable to, like we've talked previously, Hannah, about media literacy.
Yeah.
We're seeing people who are unable to interpret what the show is trying to do, what they are going for with the characters, and it's not great. And
Yeah.
then we see a lot of this quote unquote hero worship of certain heroes in the show, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't sit right. But
Yeah.
this most recent episode, very, very hard to watch, and like I I don't know. I'll finish this next episode. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I don't. The only thing that really held that episode together for me personally was I'm still invested in Butcher's storyline.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of other people like, well, totally called it. Like, I'm like, just shut up. Like, okay, all you care about is like Homelander getting some boobs. Like,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I also like
And
another thing that Jay Soups pointed out was how weirdly conservative the show is when it comes to sex. Like all
yes,
the
like they can't
superheroes can
show a
yeah.
woman's boobs. Like, yeah, it's
Well, and it's
strange.
just
They have
like
like
anytime
the big
the
orgy party with the superheroes. Like, okay, and that was
they
very
they
visual. I don't know.
they equate but they also equate sexual promiscuity or like any type of like deviant quote unquote behavior or like kink is always given to evil people. And it's
Yeah,
always like the evil villains of the show are the kinkiest. They're the ones who
yeah,
are doing a bunch of stuff.
yes, that's
And
true.
like, and so she's like, it's just like for a show that's all about like progressivism and it's, upholding, it's incredibly kink shamey and incredibly conservative when it
Hmm.
comes to the way it views sex and
Yeah.
relationships. Um,
It
which I think is
makes
interesting.
me wonder about the source material a little more, honestly. Like, I previously said I don't think that I'll read this. I still don't think I'll read this,
Yeah.
but I am curious, like, if there's like a YouTube video where somebody like compared the show to something, within 30 minutes. I would watch a
Yeah.
YouTube video
Go down a
comparing the source
Wikipedia hole.
material. Right, like that kind of thing I would do. But yeah, I not
Yeah.
really feeling that most recent episode
That
at
sucks.
all. Like, just
Yeah.
just no. Just no. But still liking The Acolyte on Disney Plus. I said I would not shut up about this show, refused to shut up
Yeah.
about this
Good.
show. I've also just seen a bunch of people like recently just like complaining about like, oh well, I haven't watched anything with all the trash that Disney's been putting out. My challenge to you is write something better then. If you think that
Laura's done.
Disney is putting out is such trash. Let me see what you can write if you're so good at it. Like, okay,
That's amazing.
This is your challenge. Submit your own work and let's see how good it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that are like, this is terrible. I can't watch any of this trash that Disney's putting out since they acquired Star Wars. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have any kind of argument besides the writing bad. Give me examples. And also let me see some of your writing. I hate that argument all the time because that's usually what people say when they don't like a show. And really, there are other reasons that they don't like a show. I don't feel like this show is one of those where you can be like, the writing is bad. I just don't. I don't know.
Laura says no.
No. And I've heard that argument with other things too. Like this was an argument with Wheel of Time a lot. Yeah. And you know what? Let me see your writing examples because these are the same people that are going to uphold The Boys and be like 100% perfection. No issues. Yeah. Perfection. And like that's not true.
No.
So there's no such thing as a perfect show. I'm not saying that, but to the people that want to continue to like hate on this particular Disney show, like first of all, these are geared towards kids, let's be real. And they're just meant to be fun. And if you can't just have fun with it, turn it off. But the most recent episode, I again have to just like harp on how good Lee Jung-jae is as an actor.
Yeah.
Just absolutely fantastic. Have you watched Squid Game, Hannah?
I have not. It was also a show that I was like, I understand all the hype and I couldn't do it when it came out.
Sure. That's a rough one as well.
Yeah.
But I watched that and I enjoyed that one too. I don't know how I feel about a second season, honestly, because I feel like it kind of just works perfectly as a one season show.
Yeah.
And sometimes when shows are so good and get so popular, streaming services or whoever has them are like so quick to be like, renewed, we're doing a second season. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes it actually is okay to not have a second season. There are some shows where you cancel them and I'm pissed because we needed to know more. Yeah. But like Squid Game probably, in my opinion, could have just ended after one season. But Lee Jung-jae was great in that. And then I'm just absolutely flabbergasted by how well this actor can portray emotion on his face. Like you notice like certain portions of his face were like literally twitching or like his mouth would just like kind of make like a little movement and he wouldn't say anything. And just like the way that his eyes work, like he can handle grief and all these different emotions so beautifully on his face. Like I'm amazed by how talented he is. And I get it that this is not going to be a show that's going to likely get any kind of like award recognition or anything. But I do hope that people, if even all these haters, if you are watching this show and you're not noticing how good Lee Jung-jae is at the role that he is working in, you're not watching because he's phenomenal. It's so good. But I think this episode, it was definitely a change of pace from the last one. Yeah. Which was easily one of like the best battle episodes I've seen on Disney Star Wars for a while.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And also like when I say Disney Star Wars, I even hate that people are saying that. It's just Star Wars. And when people are like, "Oh, the battle scenes are bad." You know what was bad? Some of the battle scenes in CGI in the original trilogy. Be real. Like those are bad.
Yeah.
Don't hold these things so close to your heart because they're not that good. Anyways, but there was a lot of action in the last episode, and this was definitely a change of pace in this episode. This most recent one, episode 6. I think that's what I'm on, episode 6. I hope so. But yeah, it was a big change of pace, but we see an interesting shift in our main characters across the board because now we're kind of dialed into these 4 main characters, and it's so cool to see the aftermath of the last episode play out in this one and how all of these remaining main characters are playing into their respective storylines. I I'm really interested in it, and I think that it's well done.
Good.
So people, just let me see your screenwriting if you're gonna make comments. Like
Laura says, I'm over it. I'm done talking to you about this.
It's like me being like, you know what, Simone Biles, I could do better. Like,
oh
that
gosh,
didn't look too good. I could probably do a backflip better than that. Like, you're right. I can't even walk downstairs. I trip and fall. That's like the equivalent of what we're dealing with here.
Got it.
So,
Perfect. No notes.
but I also started watching this anime on Netflix, Pluto, and it's about this world where humans and robots exist together, but there's definitely a lot of um I don't know if racism is the word that I'm looking for. I guess racism. I guess the robots are a different race, but there's a lot of distrust amongst uh people because robots are still, not considered the it's a lot of questioning of humanity, I guess, is what we're dealing with here. And so robots obviously have artificial intelligence, so there's a lot of people in this world ex exist in this place where they, still see robots as machines. They don't view them as human or worthy of any kind of rights or anything like that. But we also learned that a lot of these robots living in society, they do have emotions and feelings and are truly human and are also just very advanced technologically as well as emotionally. And so it's a mystery because we're in a situation where some of the most advanced robots in the world are being killed. And we have a detective from Europol, a robot himself, Gazette, who is trying to solve all of these cases of robot deaths around the world and figure out why the victims are being kind of positioned and portrayed in this certain way. And it's a really good anime, honestly. I really like it. But the only problem I have with it is the episodes are long. They're like an hour or over an hour.
Oh wow.
And I feel like I'd rather have like 30-minute episodes for this, especially because we're dealing with it. It'll have like the whole first half hour be really action packed, and then it'll get into a really sweet and meaningful storyline about one of the robots or a human robot relationship, how it was built up and everything. And we'll get very in depth on that. And then immediately switch back to action for like the last 10 minutes. And it's just like, what, this is a lot to have to deal. I don't know. I kind of prefer when episodes are like one direction instead of the back and forth. And with them being so long, I feel like it's just kind of a lot. So I've been watching like an episode a day, and it's a good one. I really recommend it, but I do think that if I were to suggest something to Netflix with this show, I'd be like, actually just like cut these in half because it would kind of flow a little better. Make it 20 episodes or however many it's gonna be, because that would kind of make it a little bit easier to take in.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do really like stories that have questions of like who is human and how do we determine who is allowed to like have a say in certain things, and this is one of those stories where we're getting that. So I really like it so far.
Oh good. That's good.
And I'm kind of like into some of these mysteries apparently at the moment because the Acolyte is also a mystery, and then this one, Pluto, is a mystery as well. So it's kind of fun to delve into these like sci-fi mysteries a little bit.
That's fun.
Yeah. Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
So for reading, I've been reading quite a bit lately. I've just been on a reading kick. I read Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century by Kim Fu. It is a collection of short stories. I listened to the audiobook. I really like the audiobook. Each of the stories is told by a different narrator, which was a ton of fun because you just get to like switch up. And it's just kind of like different short stories that are all a little bit weird and unique. Like the first one is just a girl who grows wings on her legs as like a rite of passage, and it's like a secret with her and her friends, and they want to see if she can fly. There are ones with like sea monsters in it. There's one where a woman is like seduced by the Sandman. And it's just like I really enjoyed them. I thought they were all like hauntingly beautiful, and they're just all a little bit weird and off kilter. So I highly recommend that as an audiobook. I picked it up from the library, like it was just on a list of like books to consider, and so I was like, yeah, I'll listen to that, and I enjoyed my time.
Sometimes libraries, they hit you with the good recs.
They know what they're doing over there.
They
I also
are smart.
Caught up with this season of Heartstopper. I read Heartstopper Volume 3, which is so cute. I read it at like 11 o'clock at night, and I had the best time, and I love those.
Those volumes are ones where I'm just like, once I start reading, I'm like, well, I'm out for a little while.
Yeah,
so
I just like sat until
I
I finished
pause.
reading all 350 pages, and I just love how often, like, I kind of liked that I saw the TV show first and then read the graphic novels, because then I got to be like, that's in the book. Oh, that's in the book. That's in the book, or that's in the show. That's in the show. And I think that that's so cute. But
I
I
need to
do
get
want
caught
to
up on the show because I haven't gotten caught up on the show, but I've read all of the volumes that are out.
I need to read all the volumes that are out, but I am caught up with the show. So I also did another graphic novel called Hungry Ghosts by Victoria Ying. It is about a girl who, trigger warnings, everyone. She does have bulimia. It is a YA novel. I thought this was a really good book because it shows she is a young girl. She has a very complicated relationship with her mother, where her mom just like really pushes being thin, and she has a friend who is plus size, and the friend is like full of life, and they show like how vivacious and how amazing the friend is, but it shows like how even your closest friends, if you have those like kind of internal thoughts, they get externalized on friends sometimes. It also shows an accurate portrayal of someone struggling with bulimia, and someone who wants to like come to terms with it when their parents are not ready to hear about things about them that they were not prepared for. And I thought that this book did a really good job of showing like, hey, even if you struggle and you come out to your parents in this way, they may not be receptive. But I was like, that's actually really healthy, because I think a lot of books that are in the YA genre, when we were growing up, it was always like, well, tell your parents and everything will be okay. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes parents they can't come to terms with your own struggles, and like you have to go find other resources for yourself. And I thought that, and the artwork on it was like stunning, and I just thought it was a really good novel, and I really enjoyed my time with it. So props to Victoria Ying. And then for a little bit of lighter stuff, I read a book called Fox 8 by George Saunders. So George Saunders wrote Lincoln and the Bardo, which is a very good book. It's like haunting, and it's kind of about like Lincoln after he was shot, and like these ghosts that are like standing by as he might be dying, and his son is there and everything. And it's just like this very interesting, hauntingly beautiful tale. I was at the library and I was like looking up, like I just saw all of George Saunders' works, and I was like, oh, I really loved that book, and I've never read anything else by him. He had this tiny little book called Fox 8 that is 49 pages. Laura, when I tell you this is the cutest book, I loved it so much. It is just about a fox. It's
cuter than Heartstopper?
So it's just about a little fox who learns how to speak like a human. He calls them humans. And he learns how to write, and he's just telling you his little story about how a mall, MAWL, was opened up down the street from him, and he couldn't find any food, and he just wanted to help all of his people, including Fox 7, his BFF. And it's just about environmentalism and animal cruelty, and it is so cute. And there were so many amazing points where I was laughing out loud at this little Fox 8 who just wanted to tell stories. And like in the first couple chapters, he misspells everything. It's amazing because he is a fox trying to spell. And he's like, I learned to speak like a human by actually Lee, and he doesn't know that actually is supposed to be Ly, so he spells Lee Lee, and he just listens to this mom read children books, and he's like, look, you guys have it all wrong. They say foxes are sly. I am not sly. Chickens lay eggs. I eat the eggs. And sometimes I eat chickens, but only if they consent by not running away. And I'm like, this is hysterical.
This is chickens being dumb.
Yeah. At one point, he meets a fox named Fox Why So Hefty, and I laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And so I adored this, and just cutest book, 10 out of 10. I had the best time. I just read it in the morning because it's 49 pages, guys. Yeah, and it is harder to read because he does misspell everything. But
I honestly kind of like those things, though. I find those endearing when characters, like, I know a lot of people actually don't like that when, like, characters' dialogue is like phonetically written out, like the way that they would say it, or like things are written in the way that the character would write them. You know, I actually really like that kind of stuff.
I think it's so cute. And
the only instance I can think of where I didn't like it was in A Prayer for Owen Meany, where like anytime Owen talked, it was always in capitals, and I'm just like, why is he always yelling?
Stop yelling at me. But yeah, Fox 8, please read it, Laura, because I think it sounds so cute, and I loved it so much. And
it makes me think, honestly, I was talking about this recently, how I like telling everyone in my day-to-day life about this, how foxes apparently are they think that they're trying to become domesticated.
Yeah.
Because did I tell you about this?
No, but I do know that they are trying to become domesticated.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting article about how, like, basically we've, you know, encroached upon their environment so much that they, you know, they're prevalent in cities and in communities where there's a lot of people now and everything, and they're starting to kind of just give up on hunting and things like that, and preferring to just like go to people's back doors and wait there to be fed. And so they're like, yeah, these are signs of animals trying to become domesticated, so foxes are on their way there.
Oh, good. Because Fox 8 would have loved that. He just wanted to hang out with humans until humans were mean to him. So please go read Fox 8. So everyone,
is it gonna make me sad, or is it just adorable?
So there are some parts that are like, oh, poor Fox 8, because he is a fox and a mall was obviously been experimented on. He was not experimented on. He just
I was thinking Fox 8 and Fox 7.
No. That is just the moniker with which they named themselves.
Oh, thank God.
It is very, very, very cute. He is just Fox 8, and I believe their strong leader is Fox 28. And then he meets other foxes, and he's like, they have different monikers than us. That's how I met Fox Why So Hefty. And I'm like, why is that the name?
So cute.
It was adorable. I loved it so much.
I'm looking at your Goodreads, Hannah. You've had like a lot of 5 stars recently. Wow.
I know. I've been like hitting it with the 5 stars. It's because I had Station 11 and Fox 8 and Heartstopper and Lesser Known Monsters. So I just had some good 5-star reads lately, which is good because I've been like, but and then for watching, I listened to what everyone told me, and I started looking up different things on Dropout. And I started listening to Dimension 20's Court of Fae Flores. Laura, I talked to you a little bit about this off mic, but I'm having the greatest time listening to this season. Props to the listeners who suggested this season for me, because it is hilarious. It is just a bunch of wildlife creatures who are coming to a bloom, and it is like very Lady Whistledown-esque, where it's all intrigue and you're all trying to like double speak and do stuff like that. And when I tell you that I just love it.
But without Colin, I hope.
But without Colin. You just have two, and two of the characters are just like a Lord and Lady Bird. Their grandfather created all birds. And it is hysterical because they just kept messing around. And this year the grandfather was like, hey, you have to find a spouse and you have to settle down, or like I am going to like cut you off and I will never speak to you again. And then they accidentally get into making a bet with someone that they have to make a love match by the end of the season. And they're just two people, they're just two birds who want to do lots of drugs and have lots of sex. And
oh my gosh,
hysterical to listen to them talk. And I love them so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like this character who is kind of an ugly duckling, but is super hot this season. And the lady and Lord Bird are like, they're kind of like amazing, right? Yeah, they're super cute. And then the person writes both of the birds like love letters pretty much. And they're like, we're okay with it. Like, it's so funny. And then you have Brendan Lee Mulligan, amazing man who's just playing a goblin, and he is a 7 foot tall goblin who is disgusting, and it's hilarious. And Laura, great time. We also recently, because we were on Dropout a lot recently, we rewatched. There is like a game show called Game Changer where people have to play a game that they don't know the rules for until they're on it.
Okay. Like a board
And
game or
no, it's like a game show. Like they come onto a
oh,
game
just like
show and
any
they
like Who
just
Wants to Be a Millionaire or whatever it is.
and they just start playing it and they don't know what's going on
I
until
love
it's
that.
starting. And so there's an
I
episode
love
that
watching other people. I say I love that. I love watching other people do that. I would hate it if it was me.
right
Would
no
never agree to participate.
but there is a game changer episode that is my fiance's favorite game changer. It's called The Official Cast Recording, and it's three people who have to make up a musical on the spot.
Oh,
I
I
will
love
say
that.
two of them have like they do that like as part of their career, so they're very
For
very good
sure.
at
So
it.
they're good at it.
But it is hysterical watching them because it starts with their like he's like, oh, you guys come on in and Mountain Port, a strange town with a port and a mountain all at the same location. And he's like, and we come upon a newsie. And the guy like they shine a light on
Extra,
Zach
extra.
and he goes,
Read all
extra,
about
extra, read about it. Fish are gone. And then he
it.
goes, oh, this is great. He goes, the next line is, and then we cut on over to the fisherman getting his fish. And he goes, whole lot of nothing. And it's about a baseball player who just wants to join the baseball team and a lady who wants to ruin her life who used to live in a tree. And it is
I'm
hilarious.
getting damn Yankees. I'm getting I'm picking up
So
on a few musicals.
I happen to know that Laura recently got her hands on a login for Dropout because
Yes.
my fiance will randomly just text my best friend. And you
He
should
was eavesdropping
he
while
was
we were
eavesdropping while we
recording.
were recording
And
because
he
I
sent me
speak
a message
loudly.
that said, not that I'm eavesdropping, and it was the login, and that made me laugh a lot because my phone had died while we were recording, and then I turned my phone back on later. I had got that message, and then I replied, I think the next morning, I was like, LOL.
I know that that is the exact text he sent you because later I was like, hey, could you give me your login? Like you gave it to Laura and not me, and I want to
That's
listen
funny.
to this. So he copied and pasted the exact text he sent to you.
Not
So
that I was
um
eavesdropping, but
but you
totally.
should log in and watch the official cast recording, and or we could just watch it together because it's the second time
Okay.
I've watched it. I forgot about it the first time because they were like they said there's a line that it was like I couldn't be as evil as I could be in a or I couldn't be as evil as I wanted to be in a tree. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like the musical episode. And so we watched it again and it was a good time. So
That sounds fun.
um yeah, that's pretty. I've just been watching lots of Dropout. Everyone on our Discord has been just singing the praises of Dropout. So Hannah's, it's a game
Hannah
changer.
is listening to the people.
I'm listening to the people, which almost never happens actually. So stop yourself.
Usually, if the people suggest something, Hannah is the other direction.
Oh, but we did listen to the people when we picked up but the year of the Dresden, and we have been talking for an hour.
Yes.
So
Already?
with that,
Wow.
yeah, it went by so fast before we actually started talking about the books.
I always just
Um,
do the Owen Wilson wow now all the
wow.
time.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So there is a game I'm
Not that
playing.
I'm delaying this anymore, but I'm
No, no,
bringing
no.
up something
There is a
else.
game that I'm playing called Hollow Knight, and in it there are like evil mushroom guys that you have to like attack, and one of them goes "Wow, wow," and I'm always like, it's the
Like a
Owen
cat.
Wilson. It's like I call them the Owen Wilson mushrooms because they sound like Owen Wilson, and then when they die, they go wow, wow, wow.
Well, that might be.
And so I wonder if he does the voices or if he was an inspiration for the Mushroom Men on Hollow Knight.
He may have been.
Um, yeah, but not to delay it for
Let's get
Laura.
into it
Do you
before
remember remember
we
what
start another
happened
conversation
in the last episode. Here's what you missed on Grave Peril.
You're really putting me on the spot, but I do have a notes app, so we we left off
we left off on a cliffhanger. We left off on a Little Red Riding Hood, and someone said that they were going to eat
Susan
her up.
is at the party and she's got a basket full of stuff and there's all these vampires around and she had copied Harry's invite. And the problem is that whole like protection, like, oh, we're hosts, so we have to be nice to the people that we invite over thing does not extend to Susan.
This poor Laura in this. Thank you for that recap. Poor Laura. I've been moving around so much as we record because I worked out yesterday and it was a leg workout, and so I cannot find a comfortable way to sit on this chair right now.
I had someone come into my place of business the one day and they were talking about working out, and I don't know why I assumed this was just like such a comfortable conversation to be having, and I was like, yeah, like after I work out sometimes my legs will hurt so bad that it's like really difficult even to like get up and down off the toilet to pee. And the look that I was given, I was like, oh, this wasn't that kind of conversation, was it? Like
it was my glutes are very in pain, so I keep being like, why am I so sore? And it's like, well, because
exercise.
Because you did a lot of squats yesterday, Hannah. So maybe it's your fault.
How many?
Well, I had to do
I'm just delaying this so much.
I had to do 20 when I started, and then I had to do 4 rounds of goblet squats, I think. And that was like 12 to 15, and then I had to do a wall sit at the end. So it was just a lot of squatting, and guys, my glutes, man, not
and another
good.
thing about the Acolyte,
and guys, maybe I should just like take this out to the garden for a while so Laura can see my garden before the light changes. Anyway, so Leah is here. She's like, I'm going to eat you up, Susan. And then she tries to get Harry to come with her tonight, right that instant. And
like against the oath. And then she also like offers money to Harry, or no, Susan tried. Keep going. Never mind.
Susan like tries to
she
step
tries
in,
to like,
and she's like, you
offer
can't
money
take
to Leah,
him.
like,
and Leah's like,
Harry.
I don't give a shit about money. I'm a fae. But then Susan does, and so like they're trying to get Michael's sword back because Leah had stolen it. She's not really feeling it, Amaracus. And she kind of is like trying to get Michael to turn on the Lord, and Michael is,
and she's like, I'll take one of your kids in exchange. Like, what?
And then Susan makes the worst deal I've ever heard. This is Laura and me trying to buy a car. We've talked about how we're terrible negotiators when it comes to our own selves. Yes. And Susan, instead of being like, you have to leave Harry alone, your deal is done, she's like, what if he just doesn't have to come with you tonight? Not like any other night, but tonight specifically.
Like, Susan, why are you even here?
Leah is like, I'm going to take a year off of your life. And Susan's like, done. And what she means by that is she's going to take a year from her life of her memories of Harry. So Harry is like, are you okay? And she's like, this is going to sound like a weird question, but like, who are you?
What am I doing here? And she's like, wait a minute, aren't you that guy that
like wizard detective
does like readings for people?
You just came on the scene. That's what you are, right? And so he's like, we got to get her out of here. She's in danger. And
also he's like, crap, now was the time I was ready to commit. And now she doesn't love me or know who I am.
All of a sudden, this vampire of the White Court, who was dressed like Hamlet, because of course she was, shows up, and her name is Mavra. And
and she's got really creepy eyes. I hate when they describe eyes like this, like because it's described like milky and no color to them. Like, ew.
There's a lot of fan art on Mavra because I forgot who Mavra was, and I had to look it up, and then she popped up, and then I was like,
I'm not looking that up.
Just wait. One day you're gonna open your phone and there's just gonna be a picture of Mavra on it.
You're gonna send me a picture of her, aren't you?
Yeah, yes, so mean. And for you to be like, Hannah, you have to pay for my new phone. So Mavra shows up and she's like, hey, I'm going to take one of the people away from you, Harry, because I'm
She's described as
evil.
being so old too. Like I can't handle it, but also Dresden's still a little turned on.
Well, and
Like
then Harry is like, why are you attacking me like this? And Michael's like, it's actually really about me. And I'm like, but is it? Because it feels like this is very much about Harry. Like Michael,
yeah, it's all about Harry. What are you talking about, Michael?
Michael's like, well, I killed many of her young. And I'm like, but that still doesn't tell us why she's after Harry.
Yes.
And so she starts fighting them and they don't really know what to do. It's all a mess. And we find out because she's part of the White Court, some of the old magic works on her, like garlic and crucifixes. So they keep her at bay with
Which lucky because Susan has a whole picnic basket, which
because
James
Susan
Marsters
was
says picnic basket,
all
which makes me
good.
laugh so much because it's like Yogi
Yogi
Bear.
Bear, picnic basket.
Picnic
Uh,
basket. And so luckily she's got all of that stuff in there, Red Riding Hood, and she's got crosses and tons of garlic. She is well stocked.
but Harry during this realizes that Mavra is the one who was like doing the
Hmm.
powers that he had felt earlier when he was scrying in his basement.
Hmm.
And so he's able to keep her at bay, but he's like, ooh, the plot thickens. But then all of a sudden, like, Harry doesn't really know what he's doing, but they're like, hey, the vampire court is now in session and you have to come get gifts. And I'm like, why is this happening? Like, so much has happened in between this.
Here's my thing. Why did this whole book have to shift to vampires?
I don't know, because it just
Because
seems
it
like
very
it was
much started out like
ghosts.
about ghosts and like possession type stuff, and then it was just like boom, vampires. It's all about vampires, and I really don't like that shift.
I really wasn't here for it.
No, no.
So they all get little gifty gifts. I forget what the dragon gets, but I know that Mavra gets something random. I don't remember what anyone
Honestly,
really.
I just have they present the guests with gifts because I guess that's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah,
That's
they all
literally what
have to
my
get gifts. Okay, good. I'm glad you didn't keep track because I didn't keep track. And I'm sure it might be important at some point, but it's
yeah.
not important at this moment. So we
I,
do find out that
well, because
they're really
the
pissed that
familiar of
Thomas is
Thomas's,
here
yeah, she goes over and does like
because
a little info dump with Harry and is like, actually, Thomas is here because his dad was invited and he didn't want to come. And so it's like a total insult that he
he
sent
sent his
Thomas.
bastard son
Yeah.
because vampires really care about lineage.
This is what I don't understand. Like, do you understand when they're talking about like their children and grandchildren? Like, are
Usually
they
they mean
talking about
like
the vampires that they
sires.
created?
Yeah,
Or
usually that's what they mean, but it feels like they were just talking about his children.
yeah, that's what kind of how I took it too. And I was like, wait, what?
I know. And so we find out that like Thomas is the bastard son of a vampire who was
I
supposed to
don't know how
come.
that works.
And it was an insult that Thomas is there. And Thomas's familiar was like supposed to be for
Justine.
Bianca to work as a sex worker, kind of,
Yeah.
because her blood is tantalizing. And we
Well,
find
because
out that
like even Harry is just like, yeah, I'm really into her, but the problem is I just don't think I
I
can
would
do that
never
because she's a
share.
sex worker and I don't want to do like, oh,
Well, and they also we find out later, like that Justine has some mental health issues. So,
yeah,
like, because she has high highs and low lows, uh, she's just like catnip for
yeah.
vampires. And so Bianca had wanted her, but then Thomas took her. And so, like, they would really love to kill Thomas just as much as everyone
Hmm.
else.
Which leads to a quote that I hated, where he's like, "I hate it when a woman asks me for help." When a and then it like go. I didn't write the whole thing down, but then there's a part of the quote where he says, "Or when a person takes a moral high ground and wins." Like, oh, puke.
And so then Bianca comes up and Harry realizes she's trying to goad him into like attacking her so that like
Hmm.
others could attack him willingly.
Yes.
And she's going to like try to do this as much as she can. And she gifts him with a tombstone that says, Here lies Harry Dresden, died by doing the right thing.
He died doing the
He
right
died doing the
thing.
right thing. And
Which I was like, but did he? Jury's still out.
But he also asks her, like, Bianca, why are you so obsessed with killing me? And she was like, do you remember that assistant I murdered in book 1 after you saw my true form? I liked her, and I wouldn't have killed her if you had made me show my true form. That's the reason she gives.
I know, it's so funny though.
It's so strange because I was like, who? And I had to look it up, which is what got me on my Maverick kick, where I was like, what happened?
That's so funny though. That's like the reason.
Do you remember the random assistant in book 1? No.
Do you remember that woman that answered the door and then tried to sacrifice herself and then we never saw her again?
I liked her. Okay. Anyway, so Harry goes back. They give Leah a gift. Leah gives Bianca back
Amaracus.
Yeah, and they think that, and then they realize what the died by doing the right thing is, and they bring out Lydia, and they're going to
and there she's the blood of innocence has to be spilled, and that's Lydia.
I don't know. She really offered it up to Harry really fast. So
why the slut act?
Haven't you heard, eh? Sorry.
Direct quotes.
Direct quotes. And so they're going to like sacrifice her. And Harry's supposed to have his hands tied. Like he can't act because then they can come attack him. And I'm like, I feel like
basically it's Council... like you have to behave yourself, otherwise which are you talking about? There's like these party rules that they have here, basically, like as a guest,
rules where they can't like attack anything. But also the White Council does not let him just sit by.
He's not allowed to use magic against people like in a harmful way either.
Also, Harry is not at his full fighting power. Do you know how often that gets mentioned? Not much. It rarely gets mentioned at all. And he usually is just using his powers anyway. Yeah. So I don't know why we had that pop.
It's funny though, because like in the last book, he was severely injured and that was like getting mentioned a lot.
Serious. Yeah. But this one, it's like, yeah, I can still use my powers, so I'm fine. Anyway.
But earlier it was mentioned he was like kind of losing his powers within this book. So that is a little bit confusing.
And so he knows that they're kind of dead. Michael realizes that they're trying to break Amaracus because if they use it to spill innocent blood, then it will no longer be worthwhile and he will lose his job and he might actually have to be near his maybe dying son. Just think about that.
We will get there, but I was like so annoyed like later on with this because he has a moment where Harry's like, so how's your family doing? He's like, I don't know, but Father Forehill is with them, so they're fine. Michael, what is wrong with
you? Michael is a great father.
What? Harry, do a longer soul gaze.
A higher
soul gaze is a little faulty.
A higher power is calling to him. Anyway, so Harry is like, I have to stop them, and so. Then he goes in for the fight, but he like gets angry at what's going on and he ends up burning everything to the ground.
Yeah, he sets a huge fire.
And it's not good. He blacks out after this happens.
Because in this fighting too, like it's kind of chaotic again because Butcher really loves a chaotic fight scene, honestly. Like he likes like an explosion to exist, but also a bunch of fighting. So there's like fighting and they're like, go for the bellies of the vampires because that spills all the blood out of their bellies. And then they're too weak to fight because they don't have all of their energy source. So that's what they're doing. And then Dresden
Thomas
just goes
is
like
helping them, but then Thomas double crossed them because they have Justine. But then Thomas is like, I was going to help you guys. It's just then after that, they're like, kill her still. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on. It is very camp. They also
And the
have
vampires
Susan.
take Susan, and then Harry, well, Michael starts saying a prayer for Harry, and there's all this fire and everything, and then assumingly Michael is doing CPR on Harry because like there's all this smoke, and Harry's like, yeah, somebody's doing chest compressions on me, I think, and then
Oh well.
he sees a sexy figure, and it's Leah who's
Oh.
come to save him.
And
that's also confusing too because she was like one of the bad guys being given a gift, and then she comes in to save them. And I'm like, who can we even trust?
Well, and she says like she wants Harry and he's not as fighting power, so she's going to give him some time.
She's like,
but they
I
also
don't want you in that state. I need you at full strength.
But they were able to save Lydia, not Susan and not Justine, but definitely Lydia was saved. So then Harry wakes up. It's been like over 24 hours.
Yeah, he's got a ton of burns and he's in a lot of pain. And this, I felt bad.
He's at his lowest point. He's crying. He's very upset.
And he feels bad for killing all those people too.
Yeah, because there were people who were passed out on the lawn, and he finds out that
like all the drugged people that we talked about in the previous, like they all died.
Yeah, and he thinks he killed them all, and Michael is like, but maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was the vampires.
But also Michael is weird because like earlier on in the book, he's all like, you know what? You should never say a bad word. But then he's like, these people deserve to die. And I'm like, what? Come on.
It's different energies. And so he is trying to like tell Harry he's a good guy, and it's okay. And then all of a sudden, like we find out Lydia is sleeping there. And this is when we find out like Harry's like, hey, how's your wife? And he's like, I don't know. And it's like, not sure. And so he says he had to guard.
But it's okay because Father Forthill's with them.
Here's also what makes me mad. He goes, I had to guard you because I didn't know who was coming, but we've been here for days and I thought they might be hunting you. They're just at Harry's house. They could be defeated by a phone book. Vampires have come to the house. I don't understand. It's not like he was in a safe house. He's just home for the evening, Laura.
They're just looking at a bunch of tapestries on the wall and everything.
So anyway,
and then Thomas comes in and they attack him and he's like, hey, you have to trust me. And they're like, why? He's like, because we want the same thing.
And we just want Justine and you want Susan back. They have Susan. She's still alive.
At a safe house.
And he brought Amarachius with him. So he's like, look, I brought you guys a gift. So now you have to trust me.
And he's like, but the problem is the townhouse that they're in and that they took Susan and Justine to, it's like tons of guards. So
many guns.
Like, good luck getting in there, but we'll work together. Teamwork, we can do it.
And Harry is like, you know what? Sounds good. Shower that way. Thomas goes to take a shower. At what point? Why? Thomas is naked. Like, I knew that he had gone to shower, but then Thomas is holding Lydia naked, licking her. And I was like, why is he naked? And then I was like, right, he got out of the shower.
There always has to be like quick ways for people to become naked in all of this. Which is
because Lydia wakes up and we find out that she is possessed
by the nightmare.
And
so Harry runs around his apartment and he's trying to collect all these things so he can do an exorcism and like make a circle. And he's like, here's these trick candles from a birthday. They'll help.
He also is yelling things like flick'em-bickus. Nothing is working. He's telling Azorthrical, be gone. Which the name of the demon did work at some point in this book, I swear, but this time it doesn't because we find out that it's not the demon, and I'm like, then why did it work before? Because it was not prescient to the plot. So he's about to die. Like Lydia is about to tear him limb from limb, and then he can only be saved by the machinations of a naked vampire who comes up and starts licking Lydia, and she is riding on him, and I just do not understand why. Like every time, like Lydia also during this moment when she's possessed,
because Thomas is like, oh, I want to feed off of her, and Dresden's like, get off of her.
You know what also bothers me is earlier in this when Lydia was trying to kill Dresden, it's the second time a woman is literally trying to hump Harry Dresden to death. And I do not
and also
understand.
That she's possessed is the thing too in this, that it's not her.
But why would being possessed make you want to hump someone to death? Like, You would
Why
just
not?
be trying to.
That's my question. Why not?
Well, I guess you and I have different
Hannah,
definitions of a good
I
time.
can't believe you're questioning this. Like,
So it's like the second time in this book because the vampire woman also tried to hump
oh
Harry
yeah,
to death, and not
the
great, guys.
werewolves did it in the last episode,
Yeah.
or not episode, the last the last book. Remember, because those cop werewolves were trying to hump people to death. Like, what is this?
So anyway, Thomas saves saves Harry by licking her. She's super into it. He wants to feed on her. It's very sexual, which is gross because
Yeah,
she
I don't
cannot
like it.
consent. And Harry like pulls him off her. And so they're trying to kind of reconfigure and see what's going on with the nightmare and why is it acting like this. Uh and why it seems to like want vengeance when demons shouldn't want vengeance, and it just
Right.
doesn't make sense. But
I love how
then
that's the part that doesn't make sense.
but then they
Everything
decide.
else seems about right.
Well, they have
That
to figure
doesn't
out a
make sense.
way to get into the townhouse. So they decide that they're going to go through the Never Never.
Which is a
And
very bad idea because it's super unstable and they use Bob to navigate.
Bob is
Oh
there to
my
help navigate,
gosh.
but they're like, it's super unstable. So we should be able to like make another door and it should be easier. So they go into the Never Never. They're immediately found out
Yeah.
by
Well, because Leah's
Leah.
there immediately because Bob's like, there's your godmother. Hello.
That was
She's
funny.
riding that big horse. And
Well, Leah,
Dresden's
they
like,
also
this is like, of course you would wave at her and motion her over.
well, they also have to like he also has to go through the Fey layout, and he's like, that's a bad idea. Bob was like, no other way. What a good
This book
plot
has
point.
like I don't know that much about fairies, and I don't know that I've really even read that many things including fairies, but this book is really turning me off to fairies.
I mean, they destroy her with iron pretty much.
Yeah.
They bring fake iron, it's aluminum. And they threaten her, and Harry, I forget what does he do to get her off his back? I need to make better notes.
Well,
Just
she can't understand why he would give his life for others, and he takes that poison,
right.
remember?
He takes some poison and he says, now I'm gonna die. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna die if I don't get help.
And they're like, you're
So
crazy, Dresden. And he's like, crazy like a fox.
like Fox 8 or Fox Why So Hefty. So
I just love it though because Marsters, even in the audiobooks, says it about exactly the way that I did, where it was just like if you're listening, the speed bumps up to like 2.0 and he's like crazy like a fox. I love it.
so Harry, she's like, how dare you? I want to take you. And Harry's like, look, I can't come into the Never Never for a full year if you let me go get myself healed. And then if I ever do that again, you can come take me. And then the deal is back on. And it's like, you guys do not try to negotiate much with her.
Like
You usually
these
give her
seem like
one
bad deals,
option.
but
But okay. And so he goes to leave, but also the fairies are coming to attack.
yeah.
So
So they're like, don't look behind you, keep
they're
going.
they're like, Harry, you run ahead. We'll take care of it. Because once you leave, they just
Except
won't
they
care about
don't
us.
like kind of really let him get that far ahead, but
I mean, they sort of do. So he like gets away and he
yeah, he
goes to
comes out
go
into Bianca's mansion surrounded by a bunch of
goes
vampires.
into the vampire basement, which honestly, if we've learned anything, vampires would probably be in a basement, Harry. Why did you not think that through a little bit
But
further?
the thing is though, like we learned that coming in and out of the Never Never is more difficult because they have to have like meaningful
Yeah.
locations. So I'm willing to excuse a little bit.
So he comes upon vampires and then trigger warnings for SA because Laura picked this up. I didn't quite. I thought Harry had a little bit of plot armor to him. Apparently he does not,
Yeah.
because Harry is assaulted and raped by vampires. They are
Yeah.
unable to drink much of his blood because of the
Well, it's confusing
mushrooms.
because he wakes up in this, or I shouldn't say he wakes up at this point. He comes out of Never Never and he's in the basement of the vampire
Mhm.
place or whatever, Bianca's place.
Yeah.
And then the next it kind of just like fades to black at that chapter.
Yeah.
The next chapter opens up on him like reflecting on like, yeah, my father was a stage magician. Like I miss him, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then he starts talking about how he's waking up naked and humiliated and in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
I thought he had just been
what?
beaten, but Laura picked up on it, and it was confirmed via scholarly journal Wikipedia that he was indeed raped. So he
Which
wakes,
is terrible.
and it's just like a very quick.
And he like looks over, and Justine is over in the other like
Justine
area
is
over
not,
there, and she's been fed off of, and she's not doing too great.
and again, she has mental health issues, which I don't love the way this is portrayed in this book, because she has a lot of mental health issues that are talked about, where he comes to find her like incredibly agitated.
Yeah.
She is like a little bit delusional. She is like highly distrustful of Harry. But then as soon as he needs her help to get out of the vampire caves, she's fine. And I'm like,
Right.
well, let's not, like, if she's that mentally like unwell, let's not treat it like it's just like this fun little thing to put as like a note for her while they're in a basement, and then like immediately it's gone. Like then you're just calling someone like mentally unwell to call them mentally unwell, and you're not
just
like,
for the sake of it.
and it just didn't sit well to have that scene where she's being erratic and like she seems to be like agitated versus like, oh well, now we're not talking about that, now that it's not useful to further the plot, I don't care. So anyway, he starts talking to her about what happened, and then she tells him he's not going to like what's in the corner. We find out that they did change
Susan.
So
but this is also confusing though, because it's like then he starts going into like hardcore, like I can stop it from occurring, and before it totally happens. And
well, she's infected as a vampire, but she's not going to become like a full vampire unless she feeds. So like it's kind of like the change hasn't fully occurred, but it has potential to occur.
So we're like talking like Guillermo.
Yes.
What we do in the shadows.
Yes.
There's loopholes.
There are loopholes. And so she's talking about how thirsty she is. He wants to fight back with her. And then
this is when he decides to commit.
That he loves her, and that
she
brings
said,
her back
say it again,
to reality.
It's back to reality. Oop, there goes gravity. I am feeling human again.
And during this time, Harry also has like a light bulb moment where he feels like he was missing something for a long time. And then he was like, what was Susan asking me about? What was that thing she was asking me about? And then he remembers that she was asking him about Kravos, who was the evil psycho killer from like the novel we never got to read. And he suddenly has like this light bulb moment where he's like, oh, it was Kravos all along. It was Kravos all along. And like Mavra and Bianco went to Kravos for help. So it's actually not the demon ghost, which would have made more sense. The thing is,
this book is wild with how it's tossing certain storylines in and out.
Yeah, they're just like, oh yeah, well, what if what I feel like there are so many moments where Harry or Jim Butcher was like, well, what if it wasn't the demon? Was Kravos all along, even though he already thought it might be Kravos? Okay. So anyway, he decides to fight the nightmare with he goes to fight Kravos in his dreams, I believe. And he becomes pithy again, where he's like, you've been TV will rot your brain, Kravos. And he's just kind of like, hey, last time you attacked me, you had me while I was down. I'm no longer down, and I'm going to eat you now. And so
I did it with a Ken doll, which is probably anatomically correct.
Oh god, yeah. He was talking about how he used a voodoo doll who was a Ken doll, so it was anatomically correct. So he's just very pithy. And he eats all of Kravos, and then he wakes up and he has his powers back because those are important again. And then he has some of Kravos in him. And it's dark. It's so dark. So then he says, Justine, we're leaving. And Justine becomes the most helpful person in the entire world. And they start leaving with everyone. He fights his way out of the vampires. He fights through Kyle and his sister.
Kyle,
the evil man. They have Bob nearby with his clothes because he has to have his clothes back. And they fight through it. There's gunfire. There's so much going on. Harry has his powers back, so he's able to fight through it all. He uses fuego because of course he does. Um,
There's one
and
moment though where he's saying like "vente fuero" or something like that. Isn't that what he says?
probably.
Because I'm like, that's 20 something, whatever he's saying.
Vente 20 fire. And so then he has this final showdown with Bianca. It seems like he still might lose because boy, is he in over his head. But then he remembers that they've been messing with the spirit world. And
How could he forget?
He calls up all the ghosts of all the people that the vampires have
And
murdered.
Rachel.
And Rachel shows up again. Rachel, the woman that Bianca liked.
Don't forget about Rachel.
And Rachel takes Bianca out, and there's fire and smoke and many, many things. And he reminds Susan that he loves her again. And she says, I love
she's
you
like,
too.
I just can't do this right now.
Okay, so yeah, Harry like wakes up in the hospital and they put him in the maternity ward with Charity. Why?
Because Charity's in there. They need their friends. Moral support.
Charity does not want him.
And also they were in there earlier in the book too when they saved all those babies. So full circle.
Some weird looks. The baby pulls through. They think there was something kind of holding on to it with the nightmare. So great.
And they name
it Harry.
Harry.
Why? Charity does not like Harry, and it made Michael he made Michael an absent father. Why would you do that?
Even Harry questions it. He's like, really? You named him Harry?
Yeah. And so
Harry Carpenter.
Thomas goes to a gentleman's club.
And Michael's mortified.
Murphy is awake again. Caravos is in his coffin. You know, everyone looks into it. There's nothing there. It's all fine. You know, wave
Susan
your hand
sends
away.
Harry
Guys,
some
it's the
flowers.
final chapter. Susan sends Harry some flowers. He goes to see her in the sunlight, and she's like, you know, I have to lock myself up at night. I can't trust myself. And he asks her to marry him because they are 24 and they think that will fix things. They said, I love you 2 weeks ago.
And she's like, no.
And she says, I can't.
I'm too worried I'll feed off of you.
You already made me ache for you. And then she left.
And I honestly don't know with all this Harry like saying I love you stuff. It just seems like awful convenient that when he does decide to say I love you, it's like, oh, well, now she's not available.
I mean, I think that's supposed to be Harry as sad boy. But we find out that the White Council is coming. And
because there's a war now between the Red Court
and the White Council, so they're going to be furious with Harry.
But it ends with Susan sending a card to Harry
on his birthday.
Three words in it. I'll let you guess what they are.
Happy Halloween, Harry.
I was gonna guess something else, but
what were you gonna guess?
Well, I'm assuming it's I love you. But also his birthday is Halloween. So yeah,
maybe it's
of course
happy
it is.
Birthday, Harry.
Oh.
It's you're a wizard.
You're a wizard, Harry. You're a wizard, Harry.
Oh, this book lore.
So, is Susan a vampire? Explain.
So I think she has like the potential to be a vampire. From what I saw, she was infected with vampire. Susan?
I'm just confused.
Well, I think it's kind of like you have to like you're poisoned. It's kind of like you're poisoned, but you're not. So
how does she eat? Like is she still considered human at this point? Like
yeah, I would say how does she eat? Considered human. They said she is red core infected, which means they're in the first stage of their transformation. They are sometimes called infected, half turned, half human, half dead, or half vampire. So I think it's just like she has the capability of turning if she were to eat blood, so she has to fight it. She's only half turned.
Hmm.
And
How
then
will this
Harry
affect
wants
her
to
journalism?
and she has to lock herself up at night. I don't know.
So she can only work the day shift.
Yeah. You know, that sounds like that's what happened. So, I don't know.
Someone please explain this to me. Like,
Well, I think it's like if we turn it back to
listeners,
what
call in.
seemed to be on Dresden on Jim Butcher's mind at the beginning of this novel, which is unfortunately AIDS, because I do think a lot of people take like these types of things and they one-to-one them. Like you could be HIV positive, but not, go all the way into AIDS. So I think that that's kind of what he's doing here in his own way. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that this is just kind of a way to make sure Harry remains sad boy and can't be with the woman he
that he can't.
loves.
It keeps him conveniently single.
It keeps him conveniently single to be turned on by many a woman for years to
Now
come.
he can marry Karen Murphy, and I can scream.
Yeah, I guess so.
Thoughts, Hannah?
Not my favorite of the three. I know.
Same.
I do.
I'm not a vampire girly. This was
just
not my
confusing.
thing.
Honestly, it was just really confusing. And part of it I do blame on the fact that I read this in many different ways, mostly via fiance while I baked cookies.
Many different ways.
And I don't think I fully appreciated this novel as much as the other ones, but
You know what?
think
I read
was
it in one way, the
confused.
same way I read the other ones, and it was still confusing.
Yeah, it's just really confusing. I don't love it.
It was just a lot going on, honestly.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish that Butcher would maybe dial it in a little bit with all the storylines, because there's like A, B, C, and D storylines, and even
think, like,
two would be plenty.
That's the whole thing with a mystery is like you have one storyline, you have the other storyline. The second storyline helps you further the plot of the first storyline.
This one just became overly complicated. If I can understand Loop Gurus better than I can understand this. Oh my gosh.
I'm a little I'm not a ghost girly, but I thought the ghost parts of this book
would have preferred
worked.
a ghost thing.
Yeah, I thought the ghost parts worked. I really got confused when they started bringing Lydia in. We did find out Lydia's name. Do I remember it? No. Will I look it up? No, thank you.
No.
She is fine. She leaves.
Yeah.
She just leaves.
She's
Harry's
okay.
like, she didn't even send me a thank you note. And it's like, well, Harry, she didn't know you.
You know what?
She knew very little about you,
I thought you were supposed to help the city, Harry.
Well,
you
that's
don't get
Murphy's
things
job,
in
and she was
exchange.
passed out, so it was no longer his business. Yeah, it's not my favorite.
No, like,
But
just
if you
kind
want to
of
hear us
weird.
discuss this weird book more, join us next week as we do a deep dive into the characters and themes of this book.
The final episode where we cover the themes and things, those turn out to be the most bummer episodes of the four, unfortunately.
Those are the biggest bummers, and this one will be worse because we will have to do a deep dive into Harry's sexual assault, into Charity, into if Michael is kind of an asshole, because I vote yes so far. Yeah. So join us next time.
Join us next week. I'm gonna have to watch some happy shows.
Literally, please watch the cast, the official cast recording, because that would be
I need something to brighten my mood, because I was a little bit of a downer at the beginning of this one too. So yikes.
I'm sorry, the beginning of this episode was lovely. We talked about gardening. I don't know what you're
That's
talking
true.
about.
When I started to get into what I was enjoying, it seemed like I wasn't enjoying it that much.
That's fair. So yeah, if you guys are so inclined, please follow us on all the social platforms at OWWRpod, or check out what we're doing at ourpod.com. Oh my gosh, we just had an author highlight get posted today. Yay. I'm so late to actually posting the please share. So make sure you guys are reading that. We had a great author interview with Laura from Shiva Kumar. And so please check that out right now because it looks like an excellent book and we're so happy to have him on the podcast. So please make sure you're checking that out. And if you would like to support us, please join our Patreon. There's a $1, $3, $5, and $10 tier.
We really appreciate the support no matter what way you can do it.
Agreed. All right. Well, join us next time as we get into our bummers.
Oh, Lydia's name is Barbara. I just found it.
Oh, thank you. Barbara. How could I forget? All righty.
I was Googling all this time, so had to get that in before we stopped recording.
Thank you so much, and join us next week. Bye.
Bye.